What's goody? Hey man, so listen, we got to talk about the Patriots again. So first of all, they hired Mike Vrabel to be their head coach. And y'all remember the video I did about when they fired Gerard Mayo and everything like that. The one thing I'll say about this, first of all, I'm less mad at the firing of Gerard Mayo now because I do believe that Mike Vrabel's a good coach. Before I get into anything about the Patriots, here's what I want to say about Mike Vrabel because I've seen mixed reactions about this hiring. I've seen some people that are super happy about it, and I've seen some people that think Mike Vrabel's an overrated coach. Here's what I'll say about Mike Vrabel. The man had Ryan Tannehill as his quarterback for most of his coaching career in Tennessee. With Ryan Tannehill as his quarterback, I watched that man put up battles against the prime Chiefs in the playoffs and in the regular season. I watched that man take Ryan Tannehill to a conference championship, I believe. I'm pretty sure with Ryan Tannehill, they were played in a conference championship. Now, you can say, oh, they had Derrick Henry, they had a great defense. My nigga, who was coaching the defense? Like, what are we talking about? Like, come on now. We know Mike Vrabel is a defensive guy. So all those years, even when the roster wasn't great, that those defenses were great, we got to give a whole lot of that credit to Mike Vrabel. I'm with you with the Derrick Henry thing. Derrick Henry is a 2,000-yard rusher. He's a guy that's a Hall of Famer. He's a phenomenal running back, one of the best of our generation. Derrick Henry's great. A lot of what Ryan Tannehill accomplished was because of Derrick Henry. But you can't sit up here and tell me that it was only Derrick Henry. You can't sit up here and tell me that Mike Vrabel didn't have something to do with that. You can't sit up here and tell me that Mike Vrabel didn't have just as much possibly to do with that as Derrick Henry did. Mike Vrabel is a guy that I believe is a good coach. I'm not saying he's I'm not up here saying he's a top 3 coach in the league. I'm not saying nothing crazy. But what I am saying is that this is a good hire. Based on what I've seen of Gerard Mayo, which is only 1 year, I'll say it was an upgrade. Again, we haven't seen enough of Gerard Mayo to really know that yet, I don't think. And I still don't think the Patriots gave him a fair shot. But when you have a better coach on the market, a guy that would probably have gotten a job somewhere else, a guy that played for the Patriots, I understand going and hiring him while he's available, while the iron is hot, while you can hire him. I understand going and getting him, so I get that. I'm not mad at that. And I think that it's a good hire. But here's what I'll say about the Patriots. Like I said, I hate bringing race into these situations, and I really do. And this is not a slight to Mike Vrabel at all. I don't believe this had anything to do with him. I'm not even saying that Gerard Mayo got fired because of his race. I'm not saying that at all. You could argue he might have had a more fair chance. If his race would have been different, you could argue that. But I'm not even going to sit here and argue that. That's not what this is about either. Because I believe that when the better coach is available and you're a team like the Patriots that is so used to winning, I'm not going to fault you for going out there and getting the guy that you believe is the better coach. We'll see how that works out. I'm not mad at that. But I still don't like the way that the Patriots went about posting on social media that they interviewed two different, I'm forgetting their names right now. I was literally looking at it earlier, but they interviewed 2 different black head coaching candidates, right? And they put them on like this little 2-for-1 graphic that I saw on Twitter and everything like that. Like, oh, we've just interviewed these 2 guys to be our for the next head coaching position and everything like that. I don't care what anybody says. That right there was them just being able to say, hey, we fired a black head coach, but we also interviewed 2 black head coaches before we hired the white guy. So we gave them their fair shot. I don't know if that, listen, I believe that when the Patriots fired Gerard Mayo, they already knew they were getting Mike Vrabel. They probably thought it was damn near a guarantee. Otherwise, I don't think they would have done it. So I believe that them posting that on social media and them flaunting that was their way of showing, yeah, here niggas, we tried to hire one of y'all, we gave y'all your due diligence, now get off our back. I don't care what anybody says. That is what that looks like to me. I don't care. And you can't sit up here and tell me, because I love when people say there's not racism in sports, we need to take race out of sports. I would love to say let's take race out of sports. I would love to say that there's no racism in sports. I would love to say that shit doesn't matter and that shit plays no effect on sports, coach hirings, player, free agency, all of that shit. Do you remember when Lamar Jackson was taken with the last pick of the first round in his draft class in 2018? Do you remember how 2 years ago Lamar Jackson was a free agent and every other 29 team in every single one of the other, I don't know if it was all of the other 31 teams. I think there were like some restrictions on it, but let's just say 90% of the NFL could have signed Lamar Jackson because the Ravens didn't believe in his value and the Ravens were not trying to give him the money that he wanted initially. I don't care what you say, you're not about to try to rewrite history with me. I remember that. Go back and look at what First Take and everything was getting talked about on that show. Remember how there was nobody giving Lamar the money he wanted to. Go look at that. That was a man that had already won an MVP. I don't care what anybody says. In that same situation, let that would have been Justin Herbert. Let that would have been, let me think about somebody else. Right now, this season, let that would have been Sam Darnold coming off of this season. That I saw Daniel Jones get $60 million, and I don't care what you say. He won one playoff game and got 60 M's off of it. You could say, well, that's the Giants. I don't give a fuck. I don't care. The Giants could have signed Lamar. Like, that was an option. The Giants had that option. We're not about to sit here and act like just because it's the Giants that are a bad franchise that that's the only reason this happened, because it's happened time and time again. Guys like Lamar Jackson are not given that same respect. We see running backs that were given a whole lot of respect like Christian McCaffrey, but then guys like Saquon Barkley, again, by the Giants, so maybe they are just that big of a dumpster fire, which I would believe that they are. But what I'm saying is we have to recognize that this racism stuff does play a role in sports sometimes. There's a reason that Dak Prescott gets more hate for his playoff failures than a guy like Justin Herbert. And you can say it's because Dak Prescott's been in the league for longer or because he plays in the biggest market in football. I don't care. I don't want to hear about any of that, because the way that I see it, I saw Jordan Love get hate after that Eagles game yesterday. The way that I've seen Dak Prescott get hate, which warranted, but you understand what I'm saying. I'm not saying that the hate for those two guys isn't warranted, but what I am saying is that if you're going to say that shit about them, then I need y'all to stop saying that Justin Herbert is a top 5 quarterback, a top 5 talent in the league just because the nigga plays decent in the regular season sometimes. We got to stop saying that, because if you're going to say that with Dak, he's not top 5 because he doesn't perform in the playoffs, even though he was a top 2 MVP candidate last year. So if you're saying that his regular seasons aren't enough to put him in that conversation, while he has done more in the regular season and the playoffs than Justin Herbert, then how are we putting Justin Herbert in that conversation? What has he done? Been a part of the 2 worst playoff losses that I've seen in the last couple of years? Let's be dead ass. So all I'm saying is that the Patriots made a good hire with Mike Vrabel. I genuinely believe that. I believe Mike Vrabel's a good coach. I believe they upgraded. I believe that, off the top of my head, Mike Vrabel might have been the best head coaching. Aside from coordinators that are going to get jobs this offseason, like some of the Lions coordinators, like things like that, or probably both of the Lions coordinators actually, but aside from those guys who already have jobs with other teams as coordinators that are going to get head coaching jobs, if not this offseason, then soon, I believe Mike Vrabel was probably the best head coaching candidate out there, because not of guys who have head coaching experience, I believe Mike Vrabel is probably the best option. So I'm saying that it was a good hire, but what I'm also saying at the same time is that I do not believe that the Patriots posting that graphic where they had 2 black head coaching candidates and they were like, oh, we interviewed these guys. That was literally them giving us a cookie. That was them saying, here, niggas, take this cookie. Here you go. Be happy. Don't complain about nothing. We gave you your chance. I don't care what anybody says. That stuff exists in sports and specifically in the NFL. Let's be dead ass. This stuff happens in the NFL more than it happens in the NBA. The NFL had literally, like, don't get me wrong, there's owners that we've seen that have been racist, like the Suns owner, you know what I'm saying, not Matt Ishbia, but the one before him. I'm not even going to justify him by saying his name, but we know what would happen with him. Same way with the Redskins owner, with the Commanders owner back in the day, like, not back in the day, a few years ago before they forced him to sell the team. We see this stuff with owners all the time. But throughout the NFL, it is way more evident that sometimes these black players who are ultra talented or get treated differently. Because you can't convince me that if Josh Allen would have been in the same exact predicament that Lamar was in 2 years ago, let's just say Josh Allen and Lamar flipped races. Everything stayed the same. They literally just flipped races. Lamar became white for a day and Josh Allen became black for a day. If Lamar Jackson would have been white, you can't sit here and tell me that there's not at least one other team that would have been willing to pay him. You can't tell me that. You cannot tell me that niggas will take risks on Josh Rosen and shit. I will see niggas take risks year after year on Sam Darnold. I've seen it happen with Baker Mayfield, and credit to those guys. They both revived those careers. But the way that those guys had risks taken on them, Lamar had won a fucking MVP, and nobody was willing to pay him. I saw Daniel Jones get bank I've seen Jordan Love get banked, and Jordan Love's black. That's not my point. But what I'm saying is there were guys who were lesser quarterbacks who are still lesser quarterbacks that are getting paid, and Lamar in that moment was not getting paid. No team was willing to give him what he wanted. You can't tell me that at some point in time, race had to play some type of factor, because we all knew how good Lamar was. Now, he's better now than he was then, don't get me wrong. I think this season right here was the best season he's had in his career, in terms of just like his dominance, right? His first MVP season was crazy, but like that's just what I'm saying. And speaking of his first MVP season, do we remember how crazy that shit was? His first MVP season was insane. That alone should have been enough for every single team in the league, unless you had a Patrick Mahomes, a Josh Allen, a Joe Burrow, one of those guys. Or like at the time, there was Tom Brady was still in the league and Rodgers was still with Green Bay. Unless you had one of those guys, or the Rams with Stafford who had just won a Super Bowl, unless you had one of those guys at that time, you should have been calling every single day about Lamar Jackson, and they weren't. You cannot tell me that that was simply because a lot of GMs wanted to be mad because they're like, oh, he's a running back, because that was partially racist too. We see that. You don't ever see that happen with a white quarterback, people telling him to change position. I have never seen that. But when it comes to Lamar, with guys like Lamar, Jalen Milroe, whatever, as soon as you're a mobile black quarterback, the first thing they're going to say is, yeah, but I feel like he could just do more at receiver or running back. And I don't care what you say. That shit exists. That shit still happens, and that's part of the reason that I believe what the Patriots just did with posting that graphic was still something that may not have been outwardly racist, but the microaggressions in it were crazy, and if you're black, you know exactly what I mean. All right, I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. Like I said, Patriots, good hire. I pray and I believe that Jerod Mayo will land on his feet. I don't think he did anything innately bad or anything like that during the season. I hope he lands on his feet. I believe he will land on his feet. He deserves to land on his feet, okay? All right, I appreciate y'all. Thank you for watching. Let me know what kind of videos y'all want to see, because like the Commanders game last night was great, but it wasn't crazy enough for me to want to make a whole video on it, because I already made a video hating on Justin Herbert, so I'm not going to make a whole another video about how Jayden Daniels is 1-0 in his playoffs as a rookie, and he has more playoff wins than Justin Herbert. Like, that is crazy, and I'm giving Justin Herbert hate for that, but it's not so crazy that it's like worth the whole video. You know what I'm saying? I already gave the man his video of hate. I don't want y'all to think I'm just a Justin Herbert hater. I'm just a hater of the way that he performed in that game. All right, so let me know what y'all want to see. Probably gonna get a rebuild to y'all this week, I hope. I'll try to find time, because school just started back up again, so life's tough. But yeah, I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, because it helps me out a ton. All right, thank you.